All right, y'all. On today's episode, we are going beneath the surface. One of our most highly engaged content pieces was surrounding the topic of potholes. I'm sure you're all shocked that was one of our most engaged pieces of content. And I actually received on a project closeout meeting doing some consulting with a client here in the past. I was kind of shocked, taken aback by this, but that's what caused us to put the content out there and for me to do this podcast today about going beneath the surface. The question was this. We brought up our Road Insights platform. We were looking at the analytics of conditions of roadways. And one of the great things about these types of tools is you can quickly isolate and identify poor, failed areas. And before we got started, the client said, "Hey, James, before we really get into the analysis of this project, I have a quick question. Can you please go to Road X, take a look at it, and let's watch the video together?" We've got streaming video within our platform of the roadway in high definition format, which is really cool because you can do these things transparently, objectively, from a Zoom call. And I said, absolutely. So we go take a look at it. The PCI came back, Pavement Condition Index. That's a score 0 to 100 for those of you out there that don't have a whole lot of familiarity with this stuff. The PCI came back sub 30, I believe. Let's just say it was in the high 20s. And when we look at this roadway, I bring it up, I click play, I slow the video down, and we're watching this together. I said, okay, yeah, I've got it up and running. What's the question? What kind of type of questions do you have about the roadway? And she said, why is this failed? Why do you think this roadway's failed? I don't see any potholes. And I said, wow, okay, let's talk about that. So is that, the general criteria that you're using currently to kind of identify where these, piggybacking off worst to first, where these worst to first opportunities are for your maintenance and repair program? She said, yeah, we've got a lot of potholes in the city. The citizens call in, they complain about them. They point those out to us. We have an individual team that go out and look at some of this stuff, right? And what we're doing is we're finding the potholed areas, and that's kind of driving our current program, the status of our network, conditions. And I said, wow, okay, well, hey, there's a first time for everything. I get that. Potholes are politically charged up. Nobody wants potholes. I get it. So what I had to do was do a little bit more of a deeper dive with this individual. This was somebody coming that's not necessarily new to public works, but new to the role as public works director, working with the engineering team, taking a look to their credit, right? Hiring a company, putting in a turnkey pavement management solution so that they can start answering these questions. So again, you only know what you know. A lot of us on this podcast, whether you're watching or listening to it, you're like, oh, shoot, I know why roads fail without having to have potholes. But you know what? They did not. So going beneath the surface, right? Potholes, surface level, pretty straightforward and obvious. We see cracking. One thing I really like about the ASTM standard for condition assessment is that even though you're looking at surface level cracking and issues, that is going beneath the surface, and things such as fatigue cracking, alligator cracking that are happening in your base. Those are due to load association, repeated traffic application over an area where the tires roll, heavy equipment, anything you want to come up with, especially on our residential roadways. To really dive beneath the surface for a moment, let's just get this out. Let's just talk about this. We know that around 80% or more of any given municipality's roadway network is local, residential types of roadways. The other 15, 20% are going to be arterial collector streets. Now, the only real true way for residential roadways with just 25 mile an hour traffic, speed limits, if you will, if you think about it, how can those roadways really get to a position of failed with load associated distresses? I'll tell you. Think about the uptick in the amount of traffic vehicles we have on our residential streets these days. This is one, we'll call it a theory, if you will, one observation that I've made as a homeowner, as a taxpayer, just like the rest of y'all, right? I'll give you an example. My municipal roadway, residential roadway that I live on, I can count 5 on one hand, 5 different trash haul companies using that road picking up trash each week, every single week. So let's just say 5 out of 7 days, there is a different fully loaded heavy waste management type of vehicle, not the company, I'm just saying waste management, little asterisk out there picking up trash, driving these streets, driving our roadway networks. That's one aspect. Now you've got Amazon.com, Amazon Prime, excuse me. You've got the USPS system. You've got FedEx. You've got UPS. You know, all of us from the residential component as a consumer, you got DoorDash. Now, these aren't necessarily heavy vehicles. I get that. But I can guarantee you, if your roadway was built 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was not designed and built to meet the current specifications and requirements that a residential roadway needs in America, residential America in 2024. Period, end of story. So what are we finding? You're finding residential roadways getting more load, especially those that do not have a curb and gutter, maybe a rolled shoulder. The road's not wide enough, maybe, for example. Maybe it was 18 feet. You need it to be 24 these days. You know, whatever the case is, those vehicles are now hitting the edges of pavement. We got load association, edge cracking into allocator cracking, and that can go throughout your road pretty quickly. Let's just be honest. You may not have potholes yet. They're coming, by the way. Once all that alligator cracking starts hitting that medium to high severity level, if nothing's happening out there from a stopgap preventive maintenance perspective, localized preventive maintenance schedule, that water, that debris, all that stuff's going to continue getting into the pavement. And over time, over repeated traffic application, you'll start to see those pieces rocking under pressure, popping on out, and you can find them in the ditch. That's how roadways can become failed without having potholes. And again, there's going to be some of you that have already turned this podcast off like, I already know that. But I got the question, a legitimate question. I want to make sure that even though some things may seem common sense to a lot of us, we only know what we know. They only know what they know. Our job as educators is to get the content out there. So even if just one person can take away something from this 10 minutes with me today, it's of value. It's of benefit, right? That's how you all should be approaching your marketing, by the way. If you're on the business or sales side of this podcast listening, think about that. Your job is to educate, add value to the marketplace, not just pitch. So I want to make sure that was known. Again, diving beneath the surface, specifically on our residential roadways, you can absolutely have poor to failed roadways without seeing obvious signs of potholes everywhere. The road may even, believe it or not, ride fairly smooth, you know? So just a couple takeaways today of what's going on underneath that, in a lot of cases, 2-inch lift of asphalt that we're all driving on every day. Think about these things as you're managing your roadworks, as you are planning your 2024 plan. You know, it's February, the end of February. While I would love all of you out there from the planning perspective to have your plans ready to roll, I know most of you don't. That's okay. Again, if there is a selfish pitch or plug, a pavement management plan to some degree will help you in that planning process. I know our clients typically have their paving programs out the door February, March. You know, they're ready to go. They've got everything set up, ready to rock and roll. The big benefit there is you're getting better pricing from your contractor, getting on the schedule early, getting all those kinks worked out, you know, from the weather perspective and contractual delays and all that good stuff. So that's it. That was the message today. Think about that one. Again, provide some feedback to us. Let us know how we're doing. What else can we be talking about out there that adds value to you? Until the next one, pave the way.